So where did you jump to next that the audience might be familiar with?
So let's see. After I was let go at McFarlane, I jumped around to another toy company and then started my business. And so I was running my studio, a design studio, for a couple years. This one right here, Yellow Tracksuit Entertainment. If you don't mind the plug.
Not
Um,
at all. Not at all. Plug away.
and so while I was working, I had no intention of giving up the business because business was doing really well. That was when the economy was recovering from the great financial crisis, right? So we're talking like 2010, 2011. Things were going really well for a new business, especially. I was profitable in the first year, which was amazing. I didn't expect to be profitable that quick. Um, but I think at that time, because I hired a lot of kids out of school, and we're talking like major talent. One, his name is Bryant Koshu. He's essentially just one of the top 3D concept artists now in the industry. Another, her name is Do Hong, who is now, I believe, the design director over Invincible, the animated
Wow.
series at Amazon. Yeah, so like these kids were solid out the gate, out of college, and I lucked into them. It wasn't because Yellow Tracksuit was this amazing. No, I lucked into these two because Momo lived 5 minutes away from me, and then Doe, I had worked with her. She was an intern at Spin Master, and we got to know her there. And then we had a ton of talent coming through Yellow Tracksuit in the early, like the first year and a half. And what happens is I knew this was going to happen. Younger designers, they'll move on, right? Because they have bigger, better aspirations. And of
Mhm.
course, for me, I never worry about losing talent. It's more about I will do whatever I can to get you to a level where you can just go off on your own, right? You might not
Mhm.
even need me. So if you have a better opportunity, always take it, right? So that's how I've always fostered the team chemistry, camaraderie in my company. Is we're not going to be looking over our shoulder. We're always looking forward, right?
Mhm.
So the reason I bring that up is at that point, Doe had always wanted to get into animation, and so I think she landed a role at Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, one of the two. And it was on, and she was a big Transformers fan, so she wanted to work on Transformers animated, anything. And I think she got Transformers, or she got something close enough where she got into the network that she wanted to get into. Brian, his nickname's Momo, he wanted to do video games. In college, he was studying video games, and he got a job at Konami. And so, Konami, Metal Gear, all that. So he wanted to
Yeah.
go. And so they were the only two full time. And then we had a couple of part time designers at the time, but they said they wanted to go pursue. And so I thought, do it. But I was losing really high volume output
Mhm.
designers. And so uh, I had to make a choice. I could either start looking for more people to fill seats, or I just happened to come across this job posting on LinkedIn for a design director role at Hasbro for Beyblades. And I thought, okay, well, the director role seems like the next logical step if I were to ever go back to corporate. Let me at least see what this is about. And I reached out to somebody I knew who was already at Hasbro and said, hey, look, I saw this posting. Do you think you can tell me more about it? I wasn't planning on interviewing. I just wanted to know more, like what it entailed,
Mhm.
what the brand was like, how the business was doing, just like little things. But then he just convinced me. He said, "Why don't you just come in? Just come in and talk to the team. And, come in for an interview." And I agreed. And so they flew me out to Rhode Island. I interviewed with the higher ups there, and uh, they're talking. They're asking me about Beyblade and what I thought of the brand, what what I might come in and do to beef up the business and all that. I must have made a good enough impression. Things seemed to go pretty well. And a few days after I came back home, I was it the recruiter? Yeah, the recruiter over at Hasbro reached out, and she said, "Hey, Jin, so a little bit of a change up here. Instead of having you on Bakugan, they actually want to offer you design director role on Star Wars." I accepted the position and signed the offer letter and all that, made it official. And then that's when it might have been 48 hours after I signed that the news broke: Disney acquires Lucasfilm. And that's when everything changed. Whether they wanted to or not, they were locked in with me.
So I was going to say, is it for better or worse? And before you even answered that, was the reason you jumped on the opportunity because of the IP of Star Wars?
Yeah. So here's one thing, and if I can just tell all your viewers who are in this industry or want to be in this industry, one thing I want to tell you is do not chase the brand. Don't. Like, go for the experience, right? Of building your skill set and understanding what production is really like, production development in this industry is really like. Because if you chase the brand, you will be sorely disappointed if either the team you're working with or the brand holders or whoever else you might come across working on that brand, sours your taste of what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I chased the brand. So if it was Beyblades and they offered me the same salary on that, I would have said, I would have to think about it. But I likely would have said no, because that meant I would have to relocate from Los Angeles, which is, my wife and I, it was home, to Rhode Island, where for me it would have been fine. But my wife, she grew up big city. And so it would have been a much tougher adjustment for her.
All right. So you're with one of the biggest brands, IPs out there. What happened?
So I think, now I just thought of this. One of the reasons why I may not have been given the type of role that they brought me in for before the Disney acquisition. Star Wars, you could still experiment and just try something, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe that was the risk that they as a company was willing to take. But I think because now I'm stepping into this thing and the timing of it all, Star Wars now has become this mega brand. One where before it was a big brand, but now it's a mega brand that Disney's just pumped billions into. Mm-hmm. And now the expectations were different. The problem was going in. So when you go into any kind of role, right, doesn't matter what level it is, you're always given the expectations of your team, expectations of the business. When you're in more senior level roles, you're expected to understand what the financial targets are, right? Managing bigger budgets. And so you're supposed to get downloads and all that. But I think what happened was, and I don't know, this could be total assumption on my part, but logically, this makes the most sense. I had a senior director above me. So I was a design director, and then there was a senior design director above me, and then there's the SVP over all of it. And the senior director was doing a lot of that, more the operations side, right? I was given this weird role. So here's what you have to understand. In the corporate world, anytime there's a senior before any title, they add that because they don't want to move you up to that next step up, because he would have had to go to VP. But because there's no VP role available and you want to keep that talent and you kind of owe them whatever you think you owe them, you create the senior level role. And what that does is it creates bloat within the org chart. And so, manager to senior manager is all the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they were a little bit handcuffed, I think, because this guy had been with Hasbro since the Kenner days. He was a guy who got stuff done, right? And so it was tough because you had essentially two people doing the job of one person. Yeah. And when you do that, you create a lot of, not necessarily friction, but a lot of overlap, a lot of redundancies, right? Yeah. In the pipeline. And so I wasn't given a clear direction on what they expected of me. So when I would, you go in order, right? So it's like in Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks says, I don't complain down to you, I complain up, right? Yeah. So if I complain up, the etiquette is you don't complain multiple levels above you. You complain up to the next guy, that thing, right? And so when I would ask him, what's going on, tell me what's going on with the budget. What do I need to understand with financials? I need numbers here. I can't just be sitting here telling my guys to, make cool stuff. And so it was a struggle getting that. And so knowing what I was brought in for, I wasn't able to do that job. Because I almost wonder if I had taken Beyblades, there probably wouldn't have been a senior director over me, because when I came in, there was just a director who reported to the SVP. And so that caused a few roadblocks in terms of what we could have done with the brand.
Were you able to overcome and continue to work there, or did you just kind of say, you know what, let me find something I'm more interested in?
I love the job. My team was top notch. We had two guys, especially one, Mark Boudreau, who passed away a couple of years ago. But Mark, he was the original designer of the Millennium Falcon back in the Kenner days.
Wow.
He is a legend. This man designed so much, not just Star Wars, but from Kenner to Hasbro. He had touched so many brands, right? But he was best known for Star Wars. He was on the team. Hampton Woodhouse, another vet since the Kenner days. He had designed most of the lightsabers that had come out up to that point. We had Eric Siebenaller, Bill Raleigh. We're talking really talented guys. I loved those guys. Our chemistry was great. Now, when you work big corporate in product design, marketing and product teams have to be able to coexist and work really well with each other. It's classic, right? It doesn't matter whether you're in toys or tech, doesn't matter.
I will add to that. It could be anything, because I'm in healthcare and I've worked for one of the biggest companies in healthcare, and it's the same thing. The same thing. So during your time with Hasbro, are there any lines that you worked on that, again, listeners could hear or that are familiar with? Because I know Hasbro, there's got some great IP, not just with Star Wars, with other things as well.
Yeah. So let's see. Our team, we did stuff like the Angry Birds Star Wars crossover when Rovio put out that game. We put out the Star Wars Rebels figure line when the Rebels animation came out. But the big one that your viewers might know is the Black Series. So our team launched the Star Wars Black Series 6-inch and 3 3/4-inch figure lines. So that was really cool.
They're still going today, those lines.
Oh yeah, they're still going. So it's become a thing that's turned into Marvel Legends, because with Star Wars Black Series, Marvel Legends came on board, and then there was G.I. Joe Classified now, right? Yeah. So yeah, it spawned a ton of a new product line, a new category.
What was it like working on that line?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, there is a bit of a difference when you're talking about working on a 3 3/4-inch figure versus a 6-inch figure. In terms of the actual parts and components, it is, it's just a blown up 3 3/4 that's 6-inch now. But you just have more flexibility to add more articulation or more detail. We were working 3D at the time, so it's not like we had a limitation of how much detail we could add. But now the expectation is the Black Series is essentially a McFarlane level figure. And so that's kind of interesting, because that's where my past kind of helped out at Star Wars, because this, my boss comes to me and says, "Hey, look, you worked at McFarlane for the marketing shots, the beauty shots of our figures. We want to do something like that. Like, could you do that?" And so I say, yeah, we can, just make a nice backdrop. If you wanted, we could even start putting, start set dressing up the shot. And so I worked with the photography team to set up those first images. So I don't know if your viewers might recognize them, but if you see Luke Skywalker in the X-Wing suit, standing with the hangar bay of Yavin in the background, or, Han Solo. Wait, did we do for Han? God, I don't remember. It's been so long. But yeah, those are the kind of glamour shots that we used, and we kicked those off. I think we first revealed them at Comic-Con. It might have been that year.
Wow.
And so that's how some of my time at McFarlane helped me out. Not that I did photography work at McFarlane, but just I don't know. I think anyone could have done it. It wasn't like my time probably was anything special. But they must have thought that, okay, well, you've been there, so you know some trade secrets. Like, no, it's just get great photographers.
Well, I just think for the time frame, like when Todd first started putting out toys, and I remember him telling the story because if you, I'm sure everybody is watching interviews that he's had, how he went from comics to toys and doing his own business and stuff. How the toy lines for that time before he got involved, they weren't very intricate. They weren't very design heavy. They're, the points of articulation weren't as great as where they are now, and that's I think partly
Yeah.
because of him. So I
Oh yeah.
totally understand what you're saying when you bring that up. But I'm going to ask this question again because I asked it earlier. But again, anything that you took home from that experience, like that you still have today? Because again, if I'm working there, that's what I'm thinking. Like, holy shit, this is huge. I want this.
So you mean physical, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
physical.
So at Hasbro, at any toy company, any product company, there's always samples laying around, right? So, production samples, you can take home. Prototypes are always shredded. So if you have a prototype, you take it to the team that's in charge of shredding prototypes, and you make sure that they always get it. You do not do anything else with it. If you happen to find them in the halls in random boxes that people have set out to be trashed, I don't know, different story. All the vets that work there, they told me plenty of stories where, things don't always find the shredder. I do have some cool stuff. I don't know, maybe next time I can show you because I'm going to have to dig it up. But it is a prototype for a Black Series figure that was for a particular character, first San Diego Comic-Con exclusive ever, a test shot. So it was Boba Fett. So when the Boba Fett Black Series figure was released as a 6-inch, I think it was like Series 2 or 3, the Comic-Con exclusive that year was Boba Fett, except instead of just the figure, it was Boba Fett with Han Solo and Carbonite in this nice gift box set.
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, it was a big one. I had a lot of friends asking me for samples.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was able to oblige a few, and then I was able to keep a few. But yeah, the sample, that wasn't intentional. The sample was sitting in my office, and they got passed around to the designer because we had to make sure. Because when you get these test shots, they're just grays or just solid color plastic, right? And the only reason you're reviewing them is to make sure that the detail hasn't degraded or there's something funky happening with that. You want to make sure that the articulation, the parts aren't loose, right? So the tension between the joints, you need to make sure they're tight enough. And so that's why you do that. And usually those are things that go into the shredder. But that wouldn't have been passed around to my team and maybe some engineers. And somehow it wound up back in my office, but I didn't even know about it. It was in a box off in a corner somewhere. And I don't remember putting in that box, right? So, when I did leave the company, I'm cleaning out my office, and I don't take everything. I left most of the stuff there, but there were a few things like drawings that other team members had given me, a couple of painted prototypes and stuff that I did, painted prototypes that I found, and I'm packing it all up, and I see Boba Fett in a little like dirty plastic bag with the Han and Carbonite just sitting there. I'm like, all right.
That's wild. See, that's why I ask these questions, because I'm thinking the same thing. Like if I'm working for a big company like that and they're creating some stuff that is highly collectible or highly nostalgic, especially like a line like Star Wars, forget it. The fandom is just crazy. That's the first thing that would be on my mind. But so we're gonna end this today, but I want to tell everyone out there that Jin is going to join me again, and he may be a recurring guest here on the podcast because he's got so many great experiences, so many great stories, and where he goes from here is just remarkable. So I want to do it for everyone out there who is listening. He's a remarkable guest, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this one. So make sure you stay tuned. Jin, before we say goodbye, tell everybody where they can find you, like your company and so on and so forth, in case there are some incredible designers out there who are looking.
Okay, so we are actually looking for a couple of roles. One's an internship, and then another one is a comic inker for a project we've got. If you go to yellowtracksuit.com, all one word, you can or reach us through email there. For my personal art, you can find me on Instagram at jinhan_art.
If you'd like to become a sponsor here on the Mighty Rewind podcast, make sure you reach out at the Mighty Rewind podcast at gmail.com.